It is what it is. They were gonna beat us eventually at some point. It wasn't like we were never always going to be crushing them like we had the previous two matches. So.
I am your host, Zach.
And I'm Benton. How you doing today, man?
Better than you from the sounds of it.
Yeah, lots been going on. Allergies kicking my butts. You can see a complete mess behind me. I'm trying to get a lot of stuff done. I've took off work this week and trying to be productive with it.
Well, at least we got it was a mixed bag. I was after Saturday, I was fired up to come in for another 6-point weekend, and then we had a bit of a wrench in that plan on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to it, but Detroit is fourth in the East, so we shouldn't be totally sleeping on them. Again, you're going away too. We'll get into all that. It could be worse.
It's a good atmosphere there. It's a tough place to get a win away.
Yeah. So,
but we got a better result to talk about first, because Saturday we got the North Carolina at Racing, the team that has been the bane of Racing's existence thus far. I did note through NWSL competitions, as of Saturday morning, we're still yet to get a win against North Carolina. I think only once have they even gotten points, period. So it's not been the best season for North Carolina, but still an opponent that Racing has historically struggled against, and a pretty big win for the team. It put them back into playoff spot, kind of. I think that's the last team they're yet to beat. So there's no one in the league that they haven't beaten yet. So a lot of positives to come out of that one.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was super pessimistic heading into it, largely because of the track record, and recent performances haven't always inspired confidence. But they got the job done. It wasn't I was going to say it wasn't the prettiest showing in the world, but that sounds harsher than I intended to be. I think what was really on display was their tenacity and kind of willing to hang into the match.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, North Carolina did them a lot of favors, but they took advantage of those and they hadn't given up at any point. So, there's a little bit of a mixed bag there, but at the end of the day, you get the job done. That's all that matters.
Yeah. And I think a little bit different than the last win, where I think we felt like, they kind of gutted it out and got a win where, maybe the play on the field alone might not have justified it. I think they played solid in this one. I think the order that events happened in can kind of color things a bit, but just looking at the stats from that game, I mean, they had more shots than North Carolina. They had more expected goals than North Carolina.
But I guess some big context, though, is that we didn't have a shot on target until very late, until really that North Carolina decided that they didn't want to win.
We only needed 2 shots on target, though.
That's all we needed. But for large stretches of the match, they were.
But yeah, I do think
they were doing a lot of decent things,
it took them a while we can talk about it. It took them a while to get into the game, I feel like. But I think especially after Sears came on, they were the better team for the entire rest of the game after that, other than the very, very end where we kind of got into North Carolina desperately trying to get the equalizer. But I think from that, when did she check in? This is the 60th minute, somewhere around there. I think Racing looked really, really good for that last part of the game.
Yeah, and that's about what I was thinking. So I'm about 2/3 of the match, North Carolina was probably a little bit better the team, but then they just kind of, they just really, they bottled it. They botched it. But again, credit to Racing for taking advantage. That slow, lazy pass in the back that really kind of kicked things off. All of a sudden, the team's feeling motivated, rejuvenated. They're kind of back in it.
And I think a well-earned lazy pass, because she had been hassling Sears had been hassling the defense in the press, and I think who was it that gave up that pass on North Carolina? I think it was Kurtz, but she could feel Sears behind her and rushed her pass. I mean, that was not just getting lucky and being the benefit of a bad pass. I think the press for up until that point had sort of earned that mistake through forcing her to play faster than I think she wanted to in that situation.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that was big in terms of, motivation and just kind of, optimism, kind of really showing that they could do it. Not that they had really tapered off much or anything, but that was, that was a pretty key moment. And then earning that penalty.
Yeah.
Huge.
Weirdly, a couple, I think they were both on corners or right after corners, but two big shots from Peterson in that second half, which I would not have expected. She's the one who earned the penalty, and she also had on the back post on a corner a couple minutes before that had a pretty dangerous shot that sailed a little high.
Yep. So, and this is going to be a little bit off topic. I just thought of it though, looking at the lineup. Did you notice how banged up Laura Millay got in that match, particularly by the end?
Whew. She was limping, and we were kind of out of. I mean, we were pretty low on available players on the bench at that point, so there wasn't really a whole lot to do if she was hurt.
I mean, by the end, it looked like she could hardly stand, and I'm hoping it was more of kind of a, a stinger sort of thing, sleep it off kind of deal. But
she leaves it all on the field every game, so it's kind of it's not uncommon to see her just completely gassed at the end of games.
Yeah, but not to go past this match, but just kind of already thinking ahead. Like that's not somebody I'd like to kind of see missing from action, because
that's huge.
It was accumulating like over time. Like you could see her when she kind of first is starting to feel it, and then contact again and again, and then by the end, she was in rough shape.
So, how are we feeling about the Balser trade a couple weeks on?
I mean, I think all the moves they made sense and have seemingly kind of validated themselves. Honestly, after like the first game or two, I kind of felt that way. Like I think it's important to bring in that experience and that proven talent, and I think it's holistically helped the squad.
Yeah, they've won 3 of the last 5, so I think both of us would have liked one of those 2 losses, but still, that's a better stretch than they've had. That's the same record City has over the last 5 games. So I think definitely those trades appear to be paying off. I think specifically, I think the goal, more than like getting talent or anything, was to get some players in with experience who can close out games, and that has definitely been borne out through these last 2 games.
Yeah, and now they're at a point that they've strung together 2 wins consecutively, and
they're in the 8th spot right now.
Yeah, the kind of closing chapters of the regular season. You've added more experience to the team. I mean, I think they finally like kind of turned a corner where optimism feels pretty warranted after all that they've been through. It's still going to be a very tough battle. However, their tenacity is really, really showing off, by getting this point. After that Bay one, I'm like, it just seems like too steep of a hill in terms of like the momentum or lack thereof. And look at the schedule ahead, I'm like, I just don't see it happen. But I'm starting to look wrong, because again, like you said, they're sitting in that playoff position.
They're sitting in a playoff position right now. They have Utah coming up, which is, you mentioned that they have some challenging games left, but Utah is not one of them.
That's probably their most favorable one.
Yeah.
I think it is also worth noting though that we're only in 8th in that playoff position by virtue of goal differential over Bay FC, who also has 25 points, but our +1 goal differential differential to their -8. It's kind of what puts us in spots. It's a very precarious spot.
Well, and I mean, Chicago and Portland are both reachable. I think Chicago's 4 points ahead and Portland's 3 points ahead. So they're very much in the mix. I think catching North Carolina would be a tall order. So I think realistically, 6th is like their ceiling as far as finishes go. But I would rather be in the playoff spot and be fighting to hold on to it than out of a playoff spot and fighting to get into it.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I mean,
you mentioned schedule. So they have Utah coming up on Saturday, and then Kansas City, Washington Spirit, Portland, and San Diego. So
Kansas City and Washington, I don't know.
2 tough games, two winnable games. I mean, Portland's right there with them on the table. That Portland game is going to be huge because they're fighting for a position with Portland right now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to call it. In terms of the Kansas City and Washington, like getting a point against them would be, I guess, nice in terms of forward progress, but I don't know.
I think it's why
their step up.
It's why taking care of business in the Utah game is so important.
Yep.
Because I think they can get by with not getting 3 points out of both of the Washington and Kansas City games if they get a win against Utah. I think if they drop points against Utah, that really shakes things up.
Out of curiosity, I went over and took a look at Bay's remaining schedule, and it's very similar in terms of they have some games that are going to be very tall orders, but then they have about just as many as Racing in terms of games.
The way the league's been, like, I would not be surprised. The teams are all so close together. They could drop that Utah game and then win one of the Kansas City or Spirit games because it's just.
Oh yeah, I'm not ruling out. I'm just looking at in terms of probability, right? In terms of table standings at this point, the table is a pretty good barometer of a quality of a team. I mean, it's certainly not perfect, but it gives you an idea. I mean, you feel pretty comfortable that you're gonna have a better time playing against the Utah Royals than you will the Washington Spirit. And Bay has a very similar setup where they're, I guess, more doable, more achievable games for them are going to be their next match against Seattle and then their final match against Houston. They also play North Carolina, Kansas City, and Gotham. So
yeah,
it's not, I was really largely checking to see, do they have any sort of significant leg up? Like, do they, are they playing all teams below them for the final games or whatnot? So I'm glad it seems to be pretty even.
I'm circling that Portland game because I think that's a huge playoff implications game. I think that game right there could be the deciding factor.
Yep. And I'm happy that we're able to sit here and be a lot more optimistic about their hopes after have things have gone. Because again, I was feeling
it's good
pretty pessimistic for a while
into a playoff spot.
Yes,
because it sort of felt just out of reach for so long this season. So to finally be sitting there and protecting the spot feels a lot better.
Absolutely. And again, I think it's particularly nice that they've gotten 2 consecutive wins, which I'm trying to go back and check and see if they've done that before. All right, so they did that May 25th and June 7th. That was 2 consecutive wins there against Chicago and Houston.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. So like, it's not something that's happened to them much this season. So this presents a great opportunity to make it 3 straight wins. All of a sudden, you're feeling pretty good about yourself, right?
Well, and I think this is the first time they've won 3 out of the last 5 all season too. So the best 5-game stretch they've had all year is right now.
Yeah, it looks that way.
But yeah, I mean, I think realistically need to win this Utah game and get 3 points out of it to be feeling better about playoffs. I think a loss there is super demoralizing.
Yeah,
and even a draw is going to make it tough for them.
Absolutely, yeah. That's those are missed points that are way too valuable. if that were to happen.
I'm trying to remember earlier in the season. I mean, especially considering the last time we played Utah, it was a 5-1 blowout.
I think they're a different team though than they were then, because that was a long time ago, and I think they've probably matured a lot more, kind of figured things out a little bit more.
They have, but still, that's a team you want to take care of.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I would love another result like that. I'm not as confident that it's going to be just another absolute thumping like that. We will find out on Saturday, though.
We will.
On the road. I guess that's another point to note, is that we're traveling for this one. So
pretty gorgeous place to play. One I would kind of like to make it out to at some point. Those Salt Lake City, the backdrops are gorgeous.
Utah's super cool.
Yeah.
That is a very underrated state. Or at least I had it very underrated. So, any more thoughts on racing and their recent glimmers of hope?
They got me believing, which is usually the worst, the worst thing. It usually does not work out well when I'm believing. But I feel good. They're in a good spot. Finally. So we got 5 games left to secure a playoff spot, and I am hoping we finally get some postseason games for this team. I think that'll be a big accomplishment if they're able to pull it off.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic, but we can take it one game at a time.
Just worry about the next one. All right. You want to talk about the more disappointing of the 2 results from the weekend?
Yeah.
Ben, what happened in this Detroit game?
Well, red card happened. All of a sudden, your odds of making something happen become significantly slimmer. I mean, that's the short version of it. I mean, do they win with a full field of players? I mean, they still could have lost in that scenario, but kind of felt doom and gloom by the 49th minute mark. They gave up an early goal, but I think they have a pretty strong history of doing so against Detroit. I believe that happened at least in the last encounter they had, but then they went on to score 5 consecutive on them. Louisville City did get their goal back before the halftime, which I think was pretty clutch, a nice motivating boost. But is that early part of the second half,
heading into halftime, that they were going to take care of things.
Yeah. I mean, things were starting to look good. It sucked, like, conceding the way that they did. I kept going back and forth, like, should Loss have done better with the goal that we had conceded? But it was pretty close and hit pretty hard, so I have a hard time faulting on that. It's maybe more of the setup of that, not allowing that shot in the first place. That specific goal, I don't have on Loss too much. I do have some questions just overall with the decision making in the back from Loss. Yeah.
That one specific one, but I think in general, we had some pretty questionable decisions back there that didn't always come back to bite them. But I think this is a pretty they gave up some very shaky chances for Louisville City. I think it actually could have been more lopsided than it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree. But yeah, I mean, basically the second half was played a man down. You got Philip Grodrum there. He was already kind of getting into it. These guys, he goes up for an aerial challenge, already on a yellow card. The referee deemed he was throwing an elbow there, which you go either way on it. But I guess just how things have been going, you have to kind of ensue a little bit of negative intent there.
I was not just watching it in real time. I was a little surprised because it didn't seem like too hard of a shot. I mean, everybody stayed on their feet. From the far distance you see with the camera angle, it didn't look too bad. But I think it's probably one of those situations where, like, if you've been warned about a thing from a ref repeatedly, even if it's not super egregious, if you keep doing it, you're going to get the yellow card eventually.
That's the thing. I think the referee is probably in a position to like, look, this game could get out of hand very quickly.
Yeah.
And could be very early too. It was trying to keep a firm control over it. And
It was not the first elbow
it didn't come out of nowhere.
that Goodrum had thrown. So I think he probably, I'm sure the ref probably gave him a warning and then he did it again. So sort of what, watching it on the field, that's what it looked like, reading people's lips.
Yeah. So, I'm not faulting the referee for that one. That one's pretty firmly on Goodrum's shoulders. And apparently there's a plan to sub him out at the 60th minute mark. So really
you got to know when you're sitting on a card too.
Yeah. I mean,
you gotta be aware of the game situation.
That's the disappointing thing, right? Like he just knew he needed to hang in there for another 10 minutes or so. And that sort of challenge, it's just not worth it. It's just dumb. And I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, but there's some comments online, like people were pinning the loss on Coach Cruz, knowing they're stating that, Detroit was in Goodrum's head, which I get. My, my devil's advocate to that one is that you need to be able to also kind of trust your players to execute in the game plan you present to them. So in Goodrum's case, don't be an idiot for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What's your take on the whole thing there?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of weird to blame somebody for not pulling someone earlier than the 57th minute. Like that's, no, wait, when did he?
49th
red card.
49th minutes when he got the red card.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you should expect anyone to get pulled earlier than that. Even sitting on a card, I think that's kind of maybe hindsight being 2020. I don't think you can expect in real time. So I don't know. Definitely felt like more of a on the field decision making and execution issues more than a big coach issue. Although I will say you make better decisions when you're prepared, so that could also be on Coach Cruz a little bit. But it didn't look super egregious tactically to me. It just seemed like some individual players in individual moments didn't make the best decision.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at with it, and
I do think when you're the coach, you're in charge. So I think ultimately that comes back to you. But I mean,
honestly, I feel like the team looked more dangerous. I think when they went a man down, obviously they played a lot more defense and ultimately conceded that second goal, which was ultimately kind of the death blow there, and that was kind of the questionable decision making of loss there. And I'll be the first to admit that of any position or on the field, goalkeeper is the one I feel the least comfortable in my understanding and criticizing, but I do feel pretty comfortable saying he probably should not have been that goddamn far out.
And it's not a one-time thing. I think he consistently comes out in situations where he doesn't need to, and also comes out further than he needs to in situations. It's it's a recurring thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a one-time deal. It happened multiple times in the same game where I think there were situations where a defender had a thing covered and he came out unnecessarily and made situations dicier than they needed to be.
Yep. Yeah, but
you have to as a goalkeeper, you have to be able to trust in your defenders. You cannot just constantly be second guessing your own defenders, because you get caught out in bad situations when that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean that sucked, but there was still hope. Up until the end, I mean, they were rattling off some good shots, particularly the last 10 or 15 minutes. There were probably about 4 opportunities where they were incredibly close to scoring. Some that shots were they really should have at least put on target. I think Carlos Mogul had a pretty point blank one, went right over the net, and there are a few others that pretty similar. That very easily could have been a draw.
Yeah, and that was kind of bear that out. Detroit had right around 1.98, and Louisville had 1.7. So they had the same number of shots, I think, as each other. But I would say overall, Louisville had better better chances than Detroit had.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Detroit gets all 3 points as they deserve, but like I said, that easily could have been a draw, very easily, very close to that, which does give me a little bit of silver lining, right? It's not like we hung in there to only keep it 2-1. We were, you can maybe argue a little unfortunate not to have done more there, even with the adversity that they face. So, I think there's some silver lining there, and for whatever it's worth, we have a little bit of breathing room on the table, so we could, in theory, afford to kind of drop some points. But how I'm looking at it,
loss last week, they're kind of where they were 2 weeks ago as far as points goes. They did get some beneficial. So Tampa lost, which means they have now locked up top 2 finish. They can't drop down to 3rd.
I didn't see a world where that was going to happen anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was,
but it's official.
It was all but mathematically locked up, but it is now official. Like they will be in the top 2. I mean, they've still got 2 games in hand on Charleston and they're 3 points ahead. So I think they're still overwhelmingly the favorite to get that 1 spot.
Yeah.
No one in the West is going to catch them. So
how I'm looking at this,
everything's still good.
Yeah, how I'm looking at this is that this loss could be that last little motivating boost that they need to kind of propel them into the postseason, right? Like, you don't want things too complacent or too easy. And, we might be able to look back and say hindsight, like, maybe that loss was a good thing, right? Maybe they needed to know that they aren't immortal, that they in fact can lose to anybody on any given day. And that might kind of, that might be the catalyst that they needed.
Yeah. And you don't want to be in a situation where you've got like a full month of games that don't mean anything. Because I think even good teams, it's very hard to stay focused in a situation like that. So they still are fending off Charleston for this last stretch of the season.
Yeah.
So I think that keeps your motivation up. All these games are still important. There's still, there's still stuff on the line with each of these games coming into this last bit of the season.
It's also worth noting that they haven't lost without a red card being in the equation since was it June? It goes a while back because the loss before that was Hartford, and that was a match that happened.
They've also played with 10 players a lot more than I would normally like in a season.
That's fair, but those things are going to happen, right? Like the Hartford one, like just total absolute clown nonsense. But this one's more worthwhile. Hopefully, it's something that Goodrum will be able to grow from. Like, I'd rather him get this red card now in that game versus a playoff game. Let him. If he's going to make mistakes, let it do it now so that the coaching staff can level set with him, and come playoff time, he'll be maybe a little bit more mindful of some of those actions in the position that he might be in. It was July 6th was our last loss. That was the Oakland Roots. No red cards in that one. So it's quite a long stretch,
Last loss with no red cards.
Correct.
Yeah, because they lost to Hartford.
But that was nonsense. That
a couple games ago.
Throw that game away. Doesn't matter. So, it sucks to lose to Detroit. It sucks to lose on ESPN too. It just sucks to lose, period. But we have the breathing room, and then for all the other reasons that we named, like
for people who are streaming,
it could
the game,
be worse.
It sucks to play on ESPN too.
Hey, that just means we didn't have to listen to the Detroit broadcast.
That's a good point.
Which was very nice. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. So anyway, we've got almost exactly 1 month left.
1 month
left. Yeah. Last game of the season is October 26th.
Yeah. Mixed bag of games remaining. We got Memphis coming up. Miami after that. That'll be easy.
Well,
should be, knock on wood.
We got a busy week coming up. I mean, so yeah. Play Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday.
Oh yeah, I kind of missed the Wednesday factor in that one. That's a good call.
And then it's Saturdays for the rest. So their last weeknight game is Miami. It is nice to close out on basically the whole month of October is regular, no weeknight games schedule, which is good. Going into the playoffs, I think you don't have a whole lot of schedule congestion.
Mm-hmm. So, we'll see. Again, it's not all doom and gloom at all. There's definitely a lot of redeemable qualities, and again, I look at it's maybe the kick that they needed. We'll see.
Which we did say after Hartford. We gotta keep getting these kicks every couple games.
No. Hartford was just total BS nonsense. That was just an egregious officiating performance. You can't. There was nothing that we took away from that Hartford match, other than that some people are not qualified to be referees. I mean, I'm not wrong. All right.
But yeah, so how we feel about this last stretch?
I feel fine. There's
I think they're gonna take care of business. I think they're gonna sell up the 1 seed.
A few interesting challenges left. Memphis is a pretty solid team, one that we've not faced, so that will be an interesting encounter.
I keep forgetting they're in the West this year.
Yeah, it's weird. Indy's not half bad anymore, but we've done pretty well against them as of late. But we're going up to their place. They're a different team now. Who knows?
It's a rivalry game.
Yeah, we get another shot at Tampa at home. We close things out with 2 teams that we've faced previously in finals, and they're not having the best of season. So
you would say what are the standings?
Phoenix has started to climb a little bit. Phoenix is rising.
I quit. I'm off the pod.
You're like, edit this out.
Cut that.
Hey, they went through the last 5
right now.
So that one's looking more interesting than it was a few weeks ago.
Kind of a big drop off from San Antonio. It's a little surprising.
Yeah. Phoenix was looking much more like them, but they've started to climb the ranks a bit. But yeah, San Antonio's not what I would have expected. But hey, I'll take it. So we'll see. Not a walk in the park, but
but solid.
Could be a lot harder. Any final thoughts on this Louisville City team? Or just Louisville soccer in general?
Kind of just feeling pretty good about both teams right now. Louisville City's in a great position, but Racing's in a better position than they've been in. Have to feel pretty good about their playoff chances at this point.
Yeah.
So I look forward to. I haven't looked at the playoff schedule for the leagues because the NWSL is going to finish first, right? So those playoffs will start. While
I'm not sure, to be honest. I've not really looked too far ahead there.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, scheduling wise, how the playoffs will work. I definitely don't want to have overlapping playoff games. That would be the worst.
Yeah, that would be very not ideal.
But yeah, I feel good.
Yeah,
I think
first.
As far as the overall outlook for both teams, it's better than it's been for a little while. I mean, for Racing, for City, I feel like we've kind of been in the same spot all season. But
yeah, I'm upgrade to cautiously optimistic with Racing.
Yeah, they got me believing.
We're officially out of the red and back into the green. So I'll take it.
How are you feeling, Benton? Where are you at mentally right now?
Again, with Racing, I'm going to go with cautiously optimistic. It seems like there's more of a chance than I was giving them previously. I was taking his losses pretty hard, particularly that Bay one. After that one, I'm like, this team doesn't want to be in the playoffs, and they're not going to be.
The woulda, shoulda, coulda there. They'd be in a great position if they'd won that game.
I was offended watching that match. But
we have a lot of new players. I think maybe
that
it's
was
unreasonable.
that was not
no.
That was not the
right
new
in.
players. That was no. That was not because there's new players in the equation. I do not
It's
want to hear
hard.
that.
I mean, like I was in Disney riding roller coasters, so it's hard for me to feel too bad about that one. But
You're in the happiest place on earth. That was probably the only place you could have watched that game without wanting to like
to rip my face off.
Yes. So, but yeah, and I mean, Louisville City, I'm not taking that loss too hard. Again, I don't like Detroit fans. They won. They're gonna get the gloat. I muted a ton of them already, so I don't get to see that, or don't have to see that. I should put it that way. So,
Some very unsavory, but also very uncreative chants after that penalty kick was awarded.
Oh, they thrive on being edgy middle schoolers.
If you're gonna be an edgy middle schooler, be creative.
But they're not.
Just shouting the F word at the ref is not very creative.
I will say I did get a little bit of online engagement with some of the Detroit community when I just trying to take our loss in stride, and I took the Smoke and Darkness letter and altered it a little bit for us and made it my official statement on the match, and they appreciated that. So that was of the ones that could see it. So it is what it is. They were gonna beat us eventually at some point. It wasn't like we were never always going to be crushing them like we had the previous two matches. So whatever, they can have that one. If we meet in the playoffs, they're gonna have a bad.
Yeah, that's what Indianapolis is for.
Yeah. So, yep, that's all I got. But yeah, we look forward to this Saturday. Big matches for both teams.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah, the Memphis one will be particularly interesting. Homecoming for Oscar Jimenez. So we'll see how that goes for him. Anyway.
Oh man, I'll be happy to see him back. I mean, disappointed it's for the other team, but
yeah. So
well, Benton, before we let everybody go, you got any recommendations for the people this week? I'm gonna go ahead and cut you off. No cleaning supplies. I want like an actual food or music or movie or TV show or game recommendation. I know that people want cleaning supply content, but we gotta mix it up.
Look,
sometimes.
man, the only cleaning supply I'm into is the wet vac. But no, my recommendation to people is don't be a Bengals fan. It's painful. I went to the Monday night game. We're playing against I have to stop and pause and think about their names because it's been 4 different things recently. The Commanders, very forgettable team. And
Washington Football Club.
Yeah, this is where we get our win. It's gonna be on Monday Night Football. Joe Burrow's gonna go off, and offense did okay, but like defense was MIA, and so it was a huge gut punch, huge disappointment. And I don't think we were good this year. Actually, now I could rationalize the first 2 games, but this one I'm like, okay, now there's some legitimacy here.
No matter how bad it gets, they can't take away the cool helmets with the tiger stripes.
Dude,
you always got that.
I'm telling you, I think our whole setup's neat. I like
Little kid Zach was a Bengals fan 100% purely because the helmets were the coolest.
I don't care. We'll take it. You're in. You're in. But yeah, starting to think Bengals aren't going to be good this year. So Louisville City, please help me.
Probably, evergreen prediction.
No, they've been good in recent memory. Joe Burrow, the Golden God, he's great. He's good. He gives us hope. But yeah, my recommendation is
historically get good just long enough to make it really disappointing.
No, you're thinking of the Reds. That's a big, very like Reds thing. Like midsummer, like, oh, they're getting hot and everybody's getting excited. I'm like, watch, guys, they're gonna they're gonna fall off an absolute cliff, and somehow the cliff gets like deeper and deeper each year. I don't even bother on that one. But no, the Bengals been good in recent memory. Just this year might not be it. We'll see. Zach, what's your recommendation?
I got video game recommendations week. I picked up a really fun game. It came out the end of last week on Steam. UFO 50. Have you heard about this? It's pretty wild. So it's like like Namco Museum or like NES Classic. Those like old company collection games. So this is one of those from a company called UFO Soft of like 80s sort of NES games. But the twist is that UFO Soft never existed. These are all brand new games. It's like a fake vintage game collection. It's wild. Because I would have expected, with there being 50 games in there, they'd be just like little mini games and stuff, but they're all like pretty much fully fleshed out, like NES style games. It's by the guy that did Spelunky. I don't know if you remember Spelunky.
Mossmouth is developer, it says.
Yeah, Derek Yu, I think. Yes, so I have been really enjoying that. It's also there's just so many games that I've been a little obsessed with trying to get through playing them all.
Yeah,
because I haven't even I haven't even played all of the games in it yet, but they're really good. There's one of them in there called Cyber Owls that I really love. I've been playing with Chuck. You're like a team of big like human owl people get sent on special missions around the world, and every owl's level is like a different, based on a different game. So like one of the levels is like a spy mission that's a lot like the original Metal Gear, and one of them is like a behind the back with like a reticle shooter, like some of the Contra levels were like that. And one of them is just like a side-scrolling fighter, kind of like Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, cool. I add it to my entirely too long wish list.
I was on the fence a little bit about getting it because I wanted to wait and see if it was going to come out on Switch, but I went ahead. It was only $20, and there's 50 games, so I went and got it on Steam, just because I wanted it to do well. I'm a big Spelunky fan. I like that guy's games, so I wanted to support it. But yeah,
cool.
That's a fun one, especially if you like retro games. This is like 50 games that that never existed.
Yeah, it looks neat. That's one I'll probably grab if it goes on sale, which they do regularly on Steam, which is pretty clutch. All right, well, we will wrap things up. We will let people move on to the next item in their podcast queue. Thank you guys for tuning in and choosing us to hear about Louisville City and racing news. Thanks as always to the State of Louisville Network. Catch you guys next time. Vamos Morados.